This is the only pure thing in this world.
After almost 20 years of making these movies, Jim, what has changed the most and what has stayed the same?
I'll tell you what stayed the same is the rules of storytelling and the work with the actors, because that's fundamental to all this, right? And what's changed is details around the technology, because we're constantly striving to make it better, make it a better experience for the audience, improve the 3D, improve the truth of the facial performance, you know, which we've done. I think we've kind of reached 100% now. I think you've seen the film, so I think you can agree those are real people that you're seeing on the screen. You know, so we're constantly working to do it better, but the fundamental rules of a good scene and good actors doing that scene, that never changes. It's almost like it hasn't changed for centuries. You know, you write something and then the actors stand it up, and then you're doing a scene and they bring something to life right in front of you. And that's the beauty of performance capture, because we don't film it. I don't stop to film it while they're doing it. We capture it, but that's quite agnostic, right? It's like I'm not deciding where I'm putting my camera. I'm not figuring out how it's lit and all those things that slow you down in normal live action production. And that's never changed. And the actors love it. I mean, Zoe and Sam love to come back to what they think of as their home base. They'll go do other films, but they'll come back and it's their home base. It's their kind of family or club, if you want to think of it that way, or tribe. You know, the Avatar family, we call it. Yeah. Sounds crazy, but it's a real thing.
Jim has always kept the technology away from the scenes, and they do their magic separately, and we are just asked as actors to come into an empty volume, and Jim is right there. He doesn't have a camera. He's not at Video Village or anything, and these are beautifully written scenes with lots of different levels, and we just take the time. It's like an early theater rehearsal where you come in and you just find out with your fellow actors what's happening and what it means for each of us. And it's really the best job I've ever had. So I think, if anything, my understanding of the luxury of this work has increased.
The luxury of that work. Can you dive into that a little more? Because I love that idea.
You know, I love making regular films. I love transforming with hair and makeup and costume and all that. But the luxury of this is that we come in and we're all in these little black suits. Yes, we have a camera. You forget about that in about 5 minutes. And you can come in, of course we've all prepared, but you can also come in completely neutral and experience this dialogue really as the character. You don't have to hit a result right away. The director's not going to come up and give you an action or something. Jim is so respectful of us. I'm crazy, no, but he's very respectful of us, and always wants us to try everything we want to try. It's really such a great job. We all love each other so much, and that includes technicians. He's put together, with John Lando, a very amazing group of people.
What remains the same is the connections that we all still have through this project, through this beautiful planet. What I take the most from it is that for almost 20 years, I've known the same people. I've worked with the same people, and that's a gift. Because this is really a gypsy industry. You're with some groups for 3 months, and then you make promises to have dinner and get together and do this and do that, but then everybody goes apart to other projects, and then you hardly ever get to make that connection. With Avatar, I have stayed connected to the same people for 20 years. That's beautiful.
More has stayed the same than has changed. The movies themselves, I think, have deepened and grown more complex and more emotional than they were as we go on. So I suppose, look, the investment, the emotional investment that I made and that all the actors made has always been to the nth degree, but it's to the nth degree, you know, at this point, because it's part of our life, and eventually it's going to be part of our legacy if one has a legacy as an actor, you know. So the intensity of it.
When you're making it, that in the performance capture stage, that hasn't changed. It's, I've always loved that space. It's one of the most open spaces and creative spaces I've ever experienced in making films. And it's the end product, I guess, is getting more detailed, and the trust in that pipeline of the truth that we present in our scenes. And because everything you see and everything we do is what is translated down in the end product through this digital makeup. So I trust in that pipeline, that it's preserving that essence. That has definitely increased since the first movie. It was a promise that Jim made me on the first movie, that I'm not going to animate your performance in any way apart from ears and a tail, obviously, but I'm going to preserve it. And so he's come through on that promise and then some with these new films.
All I have is my faith that this is the Great Mother's plan.
You have this family.
Your experience working with Jim, obviously it does go back to Avatar, but it also goes back to Aliens. What have you noticed changed the most about him as a director?
I think that he is much more fun. He kind of hid the fun on Aliens because it was a pretty tough shoot. But it was still the same kind of glorious script, so much about character and impeccable action, etc. But in these, he's has a family. The kids were the same age as we are a lot of the time while we were making these movies, and his love for his family really is reflected in his love for the Sullys, and in this film especially, I feel like each of the kids, their parents are busy dealing with worse things. But the kids really have to, rely on each other and take risks that they're not comfortable with, and they all come into their own. I think it's such extraordinary. It shows all the joy, but it also shows the burdens that kids have in a confusing world, or with people who, don't see your point of view, and it breaks your heart. So I just think he's much more relaxed, I think. I didn't really see the funny side of Jim. He's really funny and really fun to play with. And he was pretty serious on Aliens. Still very generous to me and would always want to try whatever I suggested, etc. But he's just gotten, to see this film and feel that he's topped himself again, which was kind of impossible, but this film is so satisfying on so many levels. An incredible experience, adventure, physically, everything is impeccable, but I feel like what you come out with, at least for me, is the honesty of these relationships, especially between Jake and Neytiri.
There are things that still remain the same. He's still very curious and still very generous with his knowledge and his art and his time. And that's what I love the most about Jim, is that he's a great teacher, he's a great boss, he's a great scientist, he's a good friend, he's a great friend. I describe Jim like I describe my mom, in the sense that they're kind of like fine wine. They just get better through age. They get softer, they get more fragrance, like their essence intensifies in all the right ways,
I see you.
Damn right you do.
People look back at a movie like T2 and say that kicked off the idea of the modern blockbuster, modern visual effects blockbuster. When you think of the theme of unlearning as it relates to Avatar, what did you have to unlearn from that point in your career to go on this journey?
Well, it was, you have to unlearn things to make space to learn things. We were creating a new form of cinema, that we're making a movie without a movie camera, which is pretty crazy. Now, there is a movie camera, but it exists in the brain, right? Because it's really a virtual camera and it can be anything it wants to be. And separating the acting from the camera, I had to unlearn patterns, right? That that were just intrinsic to me from having done 20, 30 years of live action production before that. But it's also informed by that, because when I'm doing my virtual camera, I need to run through the sort of the simulation in my mind. Okay, I'm a Steadicam. All right, what are the rules of Steadicam? Well, you don't roll the camera. So then I asked them to create a filter that would filter out my roll. If I inadvertently rolled, it would take it out, right? So now I'm a hero as a Steadicam operator with my virtual camera, because I've got filters that do that. If I'm on a crane, if I'm becoming a crane, well, I know how a crane moves, or how a telescoping arm of a techno crane or techno dolly works, because I had that experience. So bringing all that experience into it is what makes it look like it was actually shot by a normal camera system.
I'll kill you! I swear!